to establishing the Border Security Advisory Council.
The chair recognizes Mr. Guillen to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this establishes the Border Security Advisory Council and Task Force, and we do have an amendment.
The following amendment, the clerk read the amendment.
Amendment by Guillen.
The chair recognizes Mr. Guillen to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the amendment clarifies language based upon stakeholder input and specifically includes the Border Prosecution Unit and the Texas Division of Emergency Management in corresponding sections of the bill. I move adoption.
Mr. Guillen sends out the amendment. The amendment is acceptable. The author's objection to the adoption of the amendment. Chair hears none. The amendment is adopted. The following amendment, the clerk read the amendment.
Amendment by
The
Tinderholt.
chair recognizes Mr. Tinderholt to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we wouldn't put somebody that wants to defund the police on a law enforcement advisory council. Why would we put people that don't want to secure our border on the Border Security Advisory Council? I highly recommend, if you support border security, you will vote with me on this amendment. I move adoption.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Kane, for what purpose?
question for the author of the amendment.
Mr. Tinderholt, you yield for questions?
I do.
He yields
Mr.
for
General,
questions.
could you explain to me this amendment one more time?
There's makeup in the bill of what this Border Security Council's made up of, how many Democrats, how many Republicans, and how that's set up by the governor and the lieutenant governor and the Speaker of the House. And all I'm saying is if people don't support border security, why would we put them on this Security Council? It's that simple. Look, I'm going to be very clear. I spent 21 years in the military, and I watched people die protecting other people's borders. I take it pretty serious right here in America and in Texas. And so that's why I brought this amendment forward. If we're going to have people on the Security Council, then they, by golly, better support border security.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Weiner, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for a question?
The gentleman yield for questions.
I certainly will.
He yields for questions.
Representative Tinderholt, I'm looking at your amendment, and it says, appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, one of whom must be the chair of the... Where does that insert into the bill?
It
What follows
continues
that?
on the bill. It continues in the bill on that same line on
I mean,
page 2.
I apologize. Could you
5.
clarify for me what
Yep.
language follows
Let me
there?
get to page 2. Line 5 through 13.
I apologize, but without context, your amendment is not clear.
On 13, it'll say on the House Standing Committee with primary jurisdiction over security issues. It continues on to line 14 and 15.
I can't look at your amendment and the bill simultaneously. What is there,
So
Representative
it's
Tinderholt?
specifically, how it continues is you take the sentence that you see right there, and it continues and says House Standing Committee with primary jurisdiction over border security
Representative
issues.
Tinderholt, one of whom must be the chair of the what?
I don't understand your question.
Well, we're striking. Okay, so of the House Standing Committee with primary jurisdiction over border? Is that how that continues? Okay. So theoretically, the Homeland Security Committee chair is who you're keeping there? Okay. Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
Ms. Gonzalez, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield?
The gentleman yield for questions.
I certainly will.
The gentleman yields.
Representative Tinderholt, I guess I have a question. You say we need this amendment because you believe that people who don't believe in border security shouldn't be appointed to the position. Is that accurate?
What I'm saying is that the original bill had it this way, and then they changed it to be the way that it is right now. And really simply put what I said, why would we have people that want to defund the police on an oversight of law enforcement? Doesn't pass the common sense test. So I'm changing this.
I'm sorry, Representative, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do you feel that you're making broad generalizations, that making assumptions about people without actually knowing who these individuals are?
Absolutely not.
And
Absolutely not.
I'll give an example. I'm chair of Articles 1, 4, and 5. I fund DPS. We've increased DPS funding. I have not defunded anything, and yet I'm a Democrat. I think that is, again, a broad generalization over who is funding or supportive of border security. I think it's been very clear that a lot of border representatives, whether Democrat or Republican, genuinely do care about the safety and security of our communities, and I just think that we really try hard not to do things in a politicized way, and I'm grateful for the bill author for trying to make sure there's some balance to the makeup of this body. And you're just trying, I feel, by using broad generalizations, undermine that work.
Well, I respect you very much, and we've worked together for a long time. I think that there are certain people in this room, you included, that would do everything possible to thwart some things we do on the border to protect our nation and our state, period.
I think that having people who have a nuanced understanding of what's happening on the border and maybe a nuanced approach beyond just militarizing it and saying, can we do a combination of things that we know could be effective to keep. Let me make it very clear. I literally live on the border. Right behind my house is the border wall. Of course, I want my constituents and my people to be safe. I think by making generalized statements, it's very dangerous to perpetuating stereotypes about who genuinely cares about the border. Every single border representative cares about border safety, cares about their communities, and genuinely cares about their constituents.
I trust leadership of the Texas House and the Senate to choose those people wisely, and that's what this amendment does. It allows them to choose.
And I don't think that the author is trying to take away that authority. They're just trying to say we should be intentional and strategic about having balance so we can make sure we get lots of different viewpoints.
I respect your opinion very much. I would tell you to vote no on the amendment then.
Thank you.
I move adoption. Request a record vote.
The chair recognizes Mr. Guillen in opposition to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this amendment strikes something that we agreed to in committee. We agreed to change in committee. It allows the Speaker to appoint four members of this body to the council, and this would strike the section that talks about having to appoint 2 members of each party, and so for that reason, I ask you to oppose the amendment and vote no.
The chair recognizes Mr. Tinderholt to close on the amendment. Mr. Raymond, for what purpose?
Would my good friend, Mr. Tinderholt, yield for a couple of
Will the
questions?
gentleman yield for questions?
I absolutely will in one moment.
Okay.
One moment,
While
sir.
I respect the author of the bill very much, we talked about this at length during the day. I respectfully disagree with him this time, and I would ask that you vote with me on this, and I will absolutely yield for questions.
He yields for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ms. Tinderholt, what year did you get here?
Gosh, you're making me feel old. 2015.
You know how much I respect your service in the military, but this Democrat from Laredo, Texas, has been supporting border security long before you got to this chamber, as have other members from the border. And with all due respect, I appreciate what the chairman is doing with this bill, and I have great confidence that the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor will appoint people that want to secure the border. And I promise you, being from Laredo, there is no one who wants to protect the border more than I do.
You know, I believe you.
So
I do believe
I have
you.
to say, I'm sorry, you're my good friend, but it's
So-
not right
so-
for you to say what you said.
So I believe you, but my amendment allows the Speaker to choose you, but it doesn't mandate that he choose you.
It should be, but with all due respect, candidly, most of us on the border are Democrats, right? And many of us, I would say all of us on the border, certainly most of us, have been supporting border security bills and funding long before you got here.
I didn't see much of that support at all today.
Well, you
I'm
weren't
just
looking at
saying,
me
across
then.
the board, I didn't see a support.
Well, again, I think what he's done here, and members, I hope you will respectfully vote against this amendment.
I respect you very much, and I want you to know that. Members, I would say the same thing that I said before. We would not put people that want to defund the police over a
Speaker.
law enforcement
Mr. Toth, for what
advisory
purpose?
council.
Will the gentleman yield for
The
some
gentleman yield for
questions?
questions.
I will.
The gentleman yields.
Mr. Tinderholt, how many people did the U.S. Border Patrol say are on the verge of crossing our border once Title 42 goes away?
Millions.
No, it's 700,000, but
No, but it'll
millions
be
that-
millions over the next couple of
Right,
years.
700,000. So if you basically take the border counties, or I'm sorry, the border towns, and you add them all together, it comes to around 900,000 people. Roughly 80, 90% of that is on its way to cross over the border. How will people eat? How will people have medical attention? How will people have law enforcement with such a surge? And yet we have members in this body that live on the border that spent the entire day chubbing to try and kill HB 20.
Members, members, please confine your remarks to the amendment before the House.
I was on the border several times. The last time I was with DPS in helicopters, on their boats, and in their vehicles. It is absolutely abhorrent.
Politics plays
what's
no
happening.
part in this. This is about finding people that are absolutely committed, deeply committed to closing this border.
You know, and I don't know.
It's a national shame, and it's a shame on Texas.
Please confine your remarks to the amendment before the House.
I respectfully move adoption.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Moody, for what purpose?
gentleman yield for a question.
The gentleman yield for questions.
I absolutely will.
He yields.
As the bill came to the floor, there were 4 members of the House that would serve on this commission.
There were several from the House and from the Senate.
And under your amendment, we reduce House representation to 1.
No, it stays the same number, but they're appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House.
All right, so,
Instead of mandating how many come from which party.
and you do not believe that we should have a balanced approach to a discussion about what goes on our border and different viewpoints about what goes on our border. You genuinely believe that there are those of us live on the border that want lawlessness and lack of security? Is that the reason for this amendment?
So I think there's 2 answers to that question. One is that I didn't see any of the Democrat Party trying to help pass border security today. And the second is that I trust leadership in the Senate and in the House to choose the members that will best fill those positions versus saying how many from each party have to participate.
Well, what you think of as border security and what I think of as border security might look very different. So I don't know. So if you trust the Speaker to make the decisions, you can make those decisions in any way he sees fit. And by making this a partisan decision, you are cutting out the voices of folks that have a stake in this, that have viewpoints on this, that differentiate with one another, and have a healthy dialogue about things.
So we're not
these
saying
aren't things that happen.
So we're not saying
do you think people,
that you can't have
people,
Democrats on this committee. That was not said. What I'm saying is remove the mandate to have 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, let leadership choose.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that you're injecting this debate into this bill when all it's trying to do as it came to the floor was to try to bring people together to discuss things in a proactive way, and you'd rather not do that.
I saw the opposite all day today on border bills. I move adoption.
Mr. Tinderholt, since the amendment is not acceptable to the author, the question occurs on the adoption amendment. This is the record vote. The clerk will ring the bell. Show Mr. Holland voting nay, Mr. Guillen voting nay, Mr. Tinderholt voting aye, Mr. Smith voting nay, Mr. Toth voting aye. Have all members voted? Smith voting aye. Nay, I mean. So Mr. Leach voting nay. Have all members voted? There being 28 ayes and 115 nays, the amendment fails to adopt. The chair recognizes Mr. Guillen to close on the bill.
Move passage.
The question occurs on passage and engrossment HB 3782. This is the record vote. The clerk ring the bell. Show Mr. Guillen voting aye, Mr. Hunter voting aye, Mr. Leach voting aye. Show Ms. Lopez of Cameron voting aye. Have all members voted? There have been 103 ayes, 43 nays. HB 3782 is passed through engrossment. Members, the next bill on the calendar.